Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk to you about composition. Yes, I know you've seen a lot of videos about composition here and there, and that's precisely what I decided to make this video because I've seen a disaster going on around here where people are suggesting you as a beginner not to use this or that technique and get good in 5 minutes, which is not true, and is not what's going to happen. You don't have to learn all the techniques. The techniques are created because of a reason. There's a reason why they do exist. If you go to art school, if you go to photography school, as in any school, they're going to show you the rules and why this and why that. I'm not going to explain you all of that because this video will be hours long. But what I want to do is show you with my work, not using somebody else's work. But you'll get to see in my work how do I imply those techniques. I basically use 2, 3, sometimes 4 of them, and they're not as hard to learn as some people may think. See, this is kind of a trap. It's the same as if the shallow depth of field trap, or the ISO trap of 100 ISO for everything, or 1.2 F number for everything because of the bokeh and so on and so forth. Those are just myths. So regardless of the level you may have, if you're just starting, if you're a beginner or a medium or whatever, I do suggest you to learn your basics, of course. But let's say you've mastered that, you manage your lighting situation, your aperture, your all of that. Now you have to step up into composition, because regardless of the camera you use, a good composition, it's gonna be very, very appealing. It's gonna be a lot more important than the camera you use. It's going to be, composition is way more important than having everything pin sharp, because through composition you're sharing your view of the world, of the objects, or you're creating a story through your eyes. You're not just copying what everyone else is looking at. That's not the purpose in photography. The main purpose in photography is to tell a story, period. So how do you do that? Through a good composition, so you can express yourself and what you're seeing through your eyes. That's how composition works. It's the same as a painter, a sculptor. All of them, the good ones, the masters, they're good because of a good composition, because they control what they're showing to the viewer. It's the same in photography. So I'm going to share with you the rules that I use in my work, which are basically 3 most of the time, sometimes 4. But I also use my aperture as part of my composition, and I'll show you why. I use the color wheel as part of my composition, because if I have a client that wants to promote a big brand, let's say I've done it with Vela, L'Oreal, some other ones, RT Sports, and so on and so forth, I include the color wheel into my composition. So I'm combining 2 or 3 rules at the same time to make my photos more appealing, more interesting, through a good balance, through a good composition, through color, and so on and so forth. So I don't want to make this too long because I tend to talk too much. That's me. That's why sometimes I tend to just use a voiceover, because that's me. And but the most important thing here is, please don't get misleading information into you. Don't allow people out there that wants to get you good in 5 minutes, and don't allow people to tell you don't use this, don't use that, because those rules and those techniques are here for something. I mean, some guy saying that he's a National Geographic photographer, he's just because a magazine publishes your work every now and then, that doesn't mean you're like the best of the best. So there's rules, guys. There's some very good reviews about the master's composition, the techniques that we're using, and so on. And they're using those videos or I mean the work of those masters so you can understand about composition. Those videos are pretty good because they're informative, even though it's not their work. The person who created those videos is explaining us how to use composition. So that's what I'm going to do with my work. And yeah, I mean, just stick to one, master one or two, combine them. Color wheel is pretty simple to get anywhere online. You can just print it, have it in your pocket, and check the colors around you, the clothing, the sky, the background, so you get a better image, a better looking image, a better composition, a more appealing image, which is what's gonna get your work noticed. That's what's gonna get you the gigs. That's what's gonna get you to win competitions. That's what it is, okay? Regardless of the camera. I mean, even if you're using a cell phone, if you apply good composition, good coloring techniques, and so on, you'll be able to provide a story, to provide an appealing image, okay? It doesn't matter if you have a $300 US dollars camera or 100,000, that doesn't matter. And you can see these techniques applied into cinema, into the movies. So all the filmmakers use these techniques in color and in composition, and that's how they manage to astonish us, the viewers, with their work. And that's, I assume that's, or I hope that's what you want to do as a photographer. And that's what's going to keep you being a photographer for a long time. Like me, I've been here for more than 30 years. And things have changed, yes, but your work will stay. If you have a good composition, if you're transmitting a story, if you're providing your customers, whether if it's a portrait or a product shots or weddings, whatever the niche, if you're providing your customer, your client with good results, with good balanced images, appealing results, then you're going to get there eventually. And that's what makes the difference between an amateur and a pro. The use of the knowledge you acquire through the years, the experience, how to combine this, how to combine that. But if you don't have the basics mastered, if you have no clue about composition, then it doesn't work, okay? So let's go, because I already talked too much. Okay, so the first rule that I want to talk about is the rule of thirds, of course, which is basically a rule of thumb widely used in any visual art, so as photography. And here's how I use it. For instance, in this first image, I place my bottom line like on kind of on the horizon, and that's giving me a starting point. Basically, I'm aligning my image and including, let's say, there's a vintage restaurant on the left side, making sure the intersection of the lines, that's horizontal and vertical on the left, get right aligned with that. And the bottom on the right will be like placing all the cars in that area below that and the bottom of the image. That's leading your eye right to the left, but you can as well look at the right and the bottom, the cars and everything. So it provides me a balanced image. And on top right, in the intersection on the top right, we can use that as a negative space, but it's not that big, it's not that small. So it gives us a sense of space, and we can feel the image that's kind of breathing, without being too tight. On this second image, that's a landscape on the northern coast of Spain. And again, I use the rule of thirds for alignment and balance. You can see the upper line, it's right at the horizon line with the ocean, so I can have an aligned line right there. Now, I use the upper part, 1/3 of the image or the frame, to include the sky, the clouds, and what's going on up there. And the 2/3 on the bottom, I distributed that as in the center you can see two boulders there with water, and on the bottom you can see some larger boulders and sand to include my surrounding. And I'm using the hyperfocal distance. I'm basically focusing right around the water reflection and the boulder on the left, so I can get everything sharp from pretty much 1.5 meters away from me and on to the infinity. Now in this case with this image in Portugal, that's a vertical shot, but as well as you can tell, I'm using the bottom line right to the bottom of to align the bottom of the right on the intersection on the bottom right. You see basically the foot of the bridge, which guides you right there. Now the reflection of the clouds on the ocean, since it's a very long exposure, you can see those reflecting beams guiding you towards the bridge and then onto the image. Now at the same time, the bottom line, as you can see, it's basically aligned with a horizontal line on the ocean in the ground, very close to it. So that gives me a well-balanced image. So I have the same distribution for the bridge, same distribution for the ocean, and same for the sky. Now another technique that I often use, well, there are basically 2, 3 combined most of the times. I'll show you how. Basically, here I have this illustration of the golden spiral, the golden ratio, and Fibonacci sequence, which basically is a series of numbers wherein each number is added to the last. So you have 2 small ones, and then up there you have a 2, then a 3, 5, 8, 13, and 21. So this is like a spiral that goes around it, like on the left, you can see it. And that's pretty simple. So you basically add 1 plus 2, that gives you 3, then 5, add it 5 to 3, that's 8, and then 8 plus 5, that gives you 13, 13 plus 8, that'll give you 21, which is basically the distribution that you see on the left. What I tend to do most of the time is I place my subject when using the Fibonacci right in the small rectangle where 5, 3, 2, and the 2 ones are, and or on the right side where the 8 is, and then go on distribute my image around the red line, as you can see. I'm going to show you some examples. Then the golden ratio will be basically the line that you see kind of on a third of the image, which is kind of basically related to the rule of thirds, the way I see it, where I tend to set my subjects inside that rectangle on the right side or on the left side, and just give either spaces blank. Now you can see that applied right into this image. That's a person right there on the beach, very small. It's right there in that area I said, and then I'm going around the spiral, introducing things like the palm trees, that twisted palm tree, it's great for that. Then I go towards the left, I go onto the clouds, the red clouds, and then onto the ocean to end up in the bottom of the image. Now, if you see the red square, right next to the green rectangle marks a line from the bottom to the top, and then that's basically the golden ratio. So I'm including the golden ratio on the right, and at the same time the golden spiral. So that will be a combination that I tend to use a lot in my work, and I find it's very appealing. Now, there's also a juxtaposition using the greatness of the whole image, the landscape, and the very small person right walking on the beach. And this juxtaposition technique paired with the golden ratio and the golden spiral produces very pleasant images, as you can tell. Here's another example in this shot I did in the Mayan Riviera in Mexico. That's basically a branch, a little piece of an old branch from a mangrove that ended up on the beach. So I'm placing it right in the line of the golden spiral in that area that I showed you before, and I'm going around. So I'm like departing from my composition is departing from the branch around it, and then I show you the different tones on the sand and up into the ocean and the clouds. So here I'm using as well the golden ratio and the golden spiral for this composition. This composition, I find it very interesting for minimalistic, to incorporate small subjects into a whole frame, and that's the way I do it. And you get to see it a lot in my work. Now here's another example of how I use this, the rule of thirds as a base to align my horizon. The tree on the right in the junction of the two lines, the bottom and the right vertical line, which at the same time creates the golden ratio, or however you want to call it. And then the rest of the image, like the bottom left intersection, it's right with those dark clouds and some faraway mountains. Then on top, you get to see the focus area on the clouds on the left side. And on the right side, basically the main subject on this shot, it was the tree. And it formed a light circle underneath it because it was covering the light from top. So that whole area, it's like the first area where your eyes are attracted to. But at the same time, you can look at the other areas and come back. So you're telling the story of the area, you're showing the surrounding, the main subjects, which are basically the tree, perhaps the clouds in a smaller manner, but they're part of the whole scene. It could be also that I'm including the spiral right here, but it's not as notorious as the golden ratio or the rule of thirds. Now the next technique that I tend to use a lot is symmetry. I like it a lot. And when it's good to be applied, I always tend to use it. In this case, I shot this boat in the Czech Republic. And I was just walking by the river, kind of, looking for something to shoot. I never seen these boats before. So suddenly the boat just went by and I decided to center it as a main subject on the frame. But at the same time, you can get to see that I have the two buildings actually on both sides, which are kind of framing the boat. And at the same time, my central horizontal line, it's marking the water level and the center of the boat. So this is something that I like to do, and it works a lot for different subjects, like in portraits when you want to have the subject in the center. So always pay attention to those lines, to those intersections, look around for interesting subjects that, or just wait a little bit, and there's always something going on. There's always something that will make a piece of the puzzle to get your composition as you like it. So as you can tell, the rules that I used are basically there for us to be used. Otherwise, you're just wandering or shooting randomly without any distribution, without any visual effect, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. I mean, the rule of thirds is widely used by painters, cinematographers, and that's why their creations are so interesting and so appealing, so powerful, because they use certain rules that we need to use in our work in order to make your images stand out. Now, in this image, it's the same. I have the reflection of the peak, but the sky was so beautiful that I decided to juxtapose both of them, like the peak, the importance of the peak as kind of the main subject, but at the same time the sky was so beautiful that it needed to have its share on the image, and plus the reflection of both of them. The center line, the horizontal, it's going like right crossing the image along, and it's marking the difference between the reflection that has, like, it's a mirror of the upper part of the image. So that's totally 100% symmetry and nothing else. And I find it very useful for different situations. Depends on the situation, depends on what you want to show the viewer, depends on what your aim is. You can try at least master 1, as I said before, master 2, and use them both and see how it goes. Now here's another technique that I use a lot, another rule that I use a lot, which are basically a combination right here in this image that I shot right now around my house in my neighborhood in Granada. Basically, I'm using a rule of thirds, as I wrote it here for you, as an alignment and balance. So I know where the straight lines are and where the vertical lines are. Then I decided to leave the upper part for the roof of the main subject, which is at the end of the image, and leave some sky, to show a little bit of sky on top. Then the vertical lines in both sides are marking the walls of the buildings. And on the bottom, you can see the leading lines guiding your attention all the way to the end of the image. And basically, the lower part of the building, the sidewalks on both sides, even though they're curvy, a leading line doesn't have to be necessarily a straight line. It could be a curvy line. And at the same time, you can see the building at the end, the white building, is basically right next to the junction on the upper intersection of the lines, and it's centered sort of in the whole frame. So the leading lines are getting your eye right straight to that, and then you can, go around and you can get your other points of attention, and that makes pleasant image, a balanced image. And I'm including the bottom 2/3 basically are full of buildings, so as the one on the left, the one on the right, and the one in the center has a partial building, which is the roof is also providing me with a leading line towards the main subject in the background. So when you look up, then you see the roof, and it's going to guide you right to the image. Now here's an interesting image that I tend interesting technique that I tend to use a lot in landscapes, where I'm juxtaposing the rock in the front with the importance on the back of the whole image, the clouds, the mountains, the lake, and the whole image is based on the rule of thirds, and the leading line that's provided from the rock towards the lake, the stream that takes you right into the back of the image where the peaks are. Then you see the upper line from the rule of thirds, where I have the three parts of the frame with clouds, and the center with the peaks, which are the main subject. So I'm kind of framing at the same time, and that's a combination, I will say, between the rule of thirds, the juxtaposition of the rock, and the leading lines. So as you see, and also the frame in the center. So that's rule of thirds, that's 1. Leading lines, that's 2. The juxtaposition, that's 3, 4. And the framing, and all of that's making that composition. But as I said, it comes with time. Just by learning to observe things, then you can start applying the rules to your work. But without the rule of thirds, I would have known where to shoot, how to align, and you may kind of guess, but at the end you end up cropping your images and or subtracting or trying to add, which is not what was intended. In this case, this image is not minimalistic at all, but I think every element, it's where it belongs, and that's what's going to create a powerful image. Now, this is the counterpart. It's basically a minimalistic shot. You can see the golden ratio down there in red, or basically 1/3 of the rule of thirds. It's aligned with the horizontal line of the ocean. Then I have the upper part with just the sky, and the center, it's occupied by the moving clouds because it's a long exposure. And then at the same time, you have the juxtaposition of the dark rocky beach with the white of the water or the ocean. So it's kind of playing with another rule or technique. So, but again, this image is based on the rule of thirds, the golden ratio, I will say, and adding or introducing partial juxtaposition and the bottom. So in this image, that it's basically a trip photo of my kids. You can see I'm using the juxtaposition of the kids, very small, and the greatness of the walls, very old walls and huge gates and so on, in the building. And at the same time, I'm using basically a symmetry by dividing equally both sides with basically kind of the same. And you can tell in the red square that I'm using a frame to complete the composition. I shot this image in Almuñécar, Spain. Yeah, we spent a holiday there during the Christmas time. And if you see, again, I'm using the rule of thirds to balance and frame the center. And at the same time, you can see the intersection of all four lines, and they're aimed at the rocks in the bottom, on top, and on the upper right corner, intersection you see with the red circle, that I'm aiming basically at the sunbeams crossing the clouds. And right in the center, I framed basically that, which is like the center of my composition. And I think it's a powerful image. I think it's very well balanced. I'm using the negative space with clouds, and so yeah, I like to do this sort of composition a lot. And as you can tell, it's just based on the rule of thirds and framing. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, these rules and techniques are to be used in any niche photography. In this case, you can see I wrote there the rule of thirds and the filling the frame, which is something that I like to do a lot. On the left, you can see the model's eyes are right aligned with the lines. Her whole face is filling the frame, and I tend to crop people's forehead because I like it, and it results in a very powerful image. And in this case, it was used for the person's interest, and that's the image that I decided to. Well, we decided to pick. It has some sort of symmetry as well, although I will go more for the rule of thirds and what I said, filling the frame. In the center, the model is right in the center, but at the end, I angle the model in the shot so I can include the Brooklyn Bridge, because the designer or the owner of the brand wanted to show that they're in New York. So how would I include New York without going into the typical landmark, which this is a typical landmark, but it's not the main subject. The main subject is the model. I'm showing the outfit without being too typical on the shot. And at the end, this image is more appealing than just the model totally straight against a flat background. And they loved the image, and that was the cover of a magazine for the brand, for a catalog. And as you can tell, I'm using the bridge, the fence on the bridge, see if you can call it like that. The bottom and the upper part is provided me with leading lines towards the model and towards the end of the image, which is the part of the brick area of the bridge. Now, the third image, you can see him filling the frame as well with this beautiful model. And every time I use this rule of thirds, like in such a close-up, I always place eyes above the upper line, and the chin or the kind of, the shoulder line right on the bottom. And I realized that it kind of turned into some sort of my work seal, if you can call it, or some very important part of my style, because I shoot a lot with stylists and makeup artists, and then I think this filling the frame along with the rule of thirds creates very strong images, very empowering images, which is it was like the purpose of this shot. And at the same time, you can see there's symmetry on this capture. Now again, rule of thirds, symmetry, and that allowed me to show the hair of the model in a different way, occupying the 2/3 of upper 2/3 of the image and the bottom. So it would be like some sort of an inverted golden ratio, and the model is framed right in the center. And the right side, that was a shot with a 6x6 Hasselblad, and it's the same. As you can tell, I'm aiming at the hair because this shot was for L'Oreal, and you can see the hair moving. You can see the golden colors, even though it's black and white, and the model looks sensual, looks very empowered by this angle, and both images are shot in natural light with fills, of course, in the shade, and every time I can, I use natural light for this sort of work. So you can get to see the next image. You see the brand's name, it's right aligned with the bottom line of my rule of thirds. So this image on the left, it was used like that for billboards and posters, magazines. The one on the right, it was used for posters like that and billboards as well. It was also narrowed for magazines or placed like so, surrounded by white, and that's what they wanted, to show their product in use by a person and looking at the model in a different manner. And that's what I was telling you. That's what it's all about, getting an interesting image for your customers and tell a story of whatever you're capturing. And as you can tell, I'm using pretty much 3-4 rules and techniques, I would say, for most of my work, commercial, landscape, street, whatever. So, as I said, you master one, master two, combine them, use them here, use them there, and you'll see your images will improve and will stay there for the people to really admire them. The proper use of these techniques and rules, that's what makes the difference in your work. That's gonna help you to win a competition, get you a gig. That's what it is. Otherwise, you're like just shooting without any guidance, without any techniques, no rules, no nothing, and so the results are basically what I said, a disaster. That's what I'm suggesting you to include this, regardless of what some people may say. Including this in your work will yield in great results, and at least it has for me for the past 3 decades, getting into the 4th, and I've always kind of used the same, and that marks my style, the way I shoot, the things that I want to include. And as you can tell, most of my work tends to go minimal. I don't use extra stuff. Remember, photography is about subtracting, not adding a lot of things and getting a confusive composition. So that's basically what I've been telling you about, and it's very important. On the beginning of the video, I mentioned I use my aperture, my f numbers, as part of my composition. So basically here is a combination of a rule of thirds, the golden ratio, because you can see the model is basically in 1/3 of the shot, and I'm using a shallow depth of field. In this case, I used an f number of 4, so I can get the whole model in focus, and the background is the ocean, and get it blurred. And so using bokeh works as long as your main subject is sharp and in focus. Otherwise, it's not as appealing. So that's what I was saying about the trap. Now, I used, in this case, it's a 56 Fujinon, and that's equivalent to an 85 millimeter in full frame. And that's like the longest lens I use for portrait. That's why it's called a portrait lens. Because if you use large, you get a lot more compression, and there's deformation. You don't get the same result. I could have used a 50 perhaps, in full frame, which is a 35 in APS-C. And but I decided to use this one and just create a minimal shot, because the main aim is the hair, and just one eye, a lot of motion on her hair. And as well, I mentioned that I use the color wheel, which you can see right here, So in this case, the image has the blue on the ocean, the yellow on her hair, and reddish pinkish on her skin, and that's pretty much all the colors we have. Then we have those black stripes on her shoulders, which match the brand's logo. So the customer was happy with it. It was a successful shooting. We did it in Cuba, and that was basically it. She's got blue eyes, so it matches the blue on the ocean, sorry. And that's how I use the color wheel. I always check what's around, which colors could I combine. Make sure you check the if you're shooting people, of course, if you're portraying anyone, make sure that the clothing matches the wheel with the colors that you're using as a background, because otherwise they look messy instead of interesting or appealing. And that's very important in editorial work, fashion industry, and so on and so forth. So as your landscapes, of course, nature always provides the perfect colors, so that's different. But you gotta make sure the combination of colors is what you're looking for. Now here's how the image looked for billboards in double pages in magazines, or center pages of magazines, or whatever they wanted to place them. Posters for the customers of L'Oréal. Let's say stylists and coiffeurs, people like that, and it was good. I was happy with the result. And as I always say, make it simple. Don't get too complicated. Don't try to make a mess with a lot of people, tons of lighting gear, and so on. This was just basically shot like around 4 o'clock with an angle of, let's say, 45 perhaps of the sun. And the sunlight, and on the opposite side, I placed a large cloth, bouncing, so I could feel her face, her eye, and everything. So that was as simple as that. We spent a few hours on the beach, had fun, and once the director said it was what they wanted, we call it good. So, and that's the purpose. That's what you want to do. Provide your customers with what they need in any situation, and do your best at all times. But if this photo wasn't aligned, it would be different. Let's say the model's in the center, then the brand's name would be over the model. So there's always a composition for different situations, and that's what I was telling you about right from the start. So that's basically it. I hope you find this information useful. This is how I do it, and honestly, I would advise you to find your composition rules, the things that inspire you the most for your work, and include them because otherwise it's very hard to just shoot randomly, hoping that everything's going to be all right. It's like the people that shoots landscapes, or not landscapes, but street photography from the hip without even looking at the composition, because someone come up with that. I don't think so. If you look at the masters in street photography, you can see these rules are applied, and some a lot more complex are used in their work, in their compositions, and that's why they are who they are. And it's very important to me not to share any misleading information, and doing the opposite, trying to help anyone with whichever information I can. So I'm not going too long anymore, and thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed the video, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. I'm trying to share as much as I can. Sometimes I can, sometimes I'm not. I don't, but I'll do my best. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.